The homies are dying! The homies are dying!
Hey guys, JJ here, coming at you with another Dragon Link decklist video. I've done 3 takes of this. My phone kept on dying. It's 45 cards down from 50, and I took this to the Remote Duel YCS, and I got top 128, so I got 104th place. So I qualified for day 2, and then day 2, my first round, my computer disconnected, and I got the game lost, and I got the match lost, so I just dropped after that. Before day 2, my record was 4 wins, 1 loss, 3 draws. My 1 loss was against Sprite, and that was because they went first, but they didn't use none of their Sprite card. It was just pure frog in it. They didn't have Jet in the graveyard. They didn't have Sprite Blue in the graveyard. It was just all the frogs in the graveyard. So my Bystials were just dead. I couldn't do anything on his turn or my turn. So I eventually lost that match. My 3 draws was against Ishizu Tier. It was either they won round 1 or match 1 and I won game 1 and I won game 2, or I won game 1 and they won game 2. And then there wouldn't be enough time for game 3, so it would just end up in a draw, unfortunately. And the 4 wins was against Tier. It's just I had more time that time. And yeah, the deck performed pretty well against Tier elements. It performed, well, I can't say it performed pretty well against Rogue, because I didn't face any Rogue decks or any non-Tier decks other than the Sprite deck. But it is adjusted to face decks that are not Ishizu Tier, so yeah, that's pretty good. And yeah, that's about it. Let's get right into it. So first we got the Rocket Engine, so I play 2 Tracer, 1 Recharger, 1 Synchron, 1 Silver Rocket, and 2 Abs Router. So here, I played 2 Tracer instead of 3 because it's 45 cards, and I wanted to keep my card count as low as possible while also having all the good dragons. And there were multiple ways for me to get access to Tracer, through either Abs Router Dump or through Quick Launch. So yeah, 2 is good. 3 is also good, but it's not necessary. Recharger is Recharger, of course. And then I play 1 Rocket Synchron instead of 2 because Rocket Synchron is like a follow-up normal summon if you can like get Abs in your graveyard the following turn, or like Seal Bounce summon Abs, but usually summon Magnemite. So you can search Rocket Synchron if you want during the end phase and like normal summon it and bring out either your Nocto, your Abs Router, or your Druiswurm from the graveyard, and that sets up your plays and like gives you additional resources or interruption if you summon back Druiswurm. And Silver Rocket was just another level 4 non-tuner rocket monster that I wanted, because if I was going against Ishizu Tier and by chance they milled my Recharger and I wanted to use my Tracer effect on my turn, my only target would be the Synchron, and that would get me nowhere because that would force me to go into Quad Barrel, and then I have to use Quad Barrel to pop itself, and that would like make me vulnerable to Bystial or Ishizu cards. I also will be locked from summoning Link 2s and lower, so that's why I also have another level 4 non-tuner rocket monster, because if Recharger gets sent or Silver Rocket gets sent to graveyard through the Ishizu cards, I can always summon the other one. So yeah, that came up quite a bit. And also I would have like 2 targets for both of my Tracers. So if I did like Tracer summon Recharger, the following turn I could just Tracer summon Silver Rock. So you know, it makes me have more plays on my follow-up. And then 2 Abs Router, self-explanatory. Extender, I've shoot the rocket card. I might cut it down to 1 because I have 2 in case the first one gets milled. I can always dump another one, you know, more searches. But yeah, I'm liking the ratios right now, no issues, so that's that. Next is the Bystial Engine. So I'm playing 3 Lubellion, 3 Magnemite, 3 Druiswurm, and 3 Sournir, and of course the Spell and Trap, but I'm doing the monsters right now. The reason why I only play 1 Sournir instead of like maxing out on all the Bystial names is because Sournir is like the worst Bystial you can have, and I only needed like one of him to like dump the spell to place it in my spell and trap zone with the trap card. So I only wanted one of him, and I wanted like different name. And this deck is more than just like pure Bystials. It's also like dragon good stuff. So I didn't want to max out on the Bystial cards, because then I would be like shaping up my deck to only win against tier, when I also want to win against tier, of course, but I also want to win against like other decks like non-tier elements. Real good stuff. So yeah, that's it for the Bystial engine. Next is the Chaos engine. Of course, we have the 3 Safer, best normal summon, 1 black, 1 white dragon, 1 levy, best interruption, best card to break boards basically, rip a hand, all that good stuff. And then 1 Chaos Emperor. I had to answer the door. So Emperor is like the card I'm usually searching off Magnemite during the end phase when I summon my Magnemite through seals. And if it's not that, it's like a normal summon or like something that can help me during my turn. Pretty good. Grabs you any banished dragon, you can summon it afterwards. The nuke effect, it's only during desperate situations. But other than that, pretty good card. Pretty expensive card. Lucky thing I bought it early. Next thing is my Red Ice engine. So 3 black metals, dragon, and then the 1 red MD. I just wanted additional normal summons outside of Safer. If I didn't see a Safer in my opening hand to normal summon, then I'm usually like hard normal summoning a rocket monster, and I don't want that, because if I just normal summon a rocket monster going to Striker Dragon, I would need a extender to play beyond that, and if I didn't have an extender, then I'm like in a pretty awkward spot. And the neat thing about the Red Ice engine is that if you normal summon black metal going to Striker Dragon, do your chains, then afterwards when you summon your red MD, and like you have your Lebellion, so if you like push Lebellion and then do your black metal combo, your opponent would be like forced to banish the Lebellion as soon as you summon your Red Ice, because you contribute your Red Ice to summon Lebellion instead of like hard summoning one of your Bystial monsters and then summon Lebellion, because they can just target your Bystial target or just target your Lebellion on res. So that way you can't summon your Lebellion. But Red Eyes, it plays around Bystials kind of, and then it plays around the Shizu cards. So he doesn't target when he's special summoning a dragon from hand or grave. So you can just special summon any dragon monster from your graveyard or hand. So it doesn't matter if they like banish whatever dragon they want or like shuffle back with these Shizu cards. You're still getting the dragon out of it either way. Unless like you didn't have a lot of dragons in your graveyard, then that's about it. But yeah, you can like summon Red Eyes special summon, and then on res you can just Lebellion, tribute your Red Eyes to summon, and then Lebellion place a spell or trap, and then you'll still have your Bystial monster that you search through Lebellion effect. So that's pretty neat. And then I would usually banish my Red Eyes when he's in the graveyard, because on my following turn I would go into Pisty, and like Pisty, special summon my Red Eye instead of like special summon a dragon from graveyard, because I'm always trying to avoid special summoning a dragon monster from my graveyard, because Ishizu cards exist and the Bystial monsters exist. So I'm trying to like target any of my good dragons in the banish, and the first one would be Red MD, because then I can special summon Red MD effect, which would generate another body, and it's non-targeting, so it's still playing around the Shizu cards and Bystial monsters, so that's pretty good. And for the last of my monsters, it's obviously the 2 Nocto Vision, self-explanatory. Good extender, good draw, chains block, secret effect to prevent a card from being targeted. My tech card, the Dragunity Corsae. I'm butchering that name. So Dragunity Course pairs up with Dragunity Lance, and so the reason why I have this whole engine is so I can summon out Dragunity Knight Rebar. So the reason why I'm playing this engine is because whenever I go into Romulus, I would search the Dragon Ravine, of course, activate Dragon Ravine, and then discard for cost, dump abs, get my rocket through abs effect, and then on res, my opponent would like Kelbeck and then target my Romulus, and that would put me in like an awkward position, because now I have to like commit more resources to make Seal and make my Morlo Salvage Dragon. So with the Dragunity Divine Lance, I can just search this, equip it to Romulus, use the Divine Lance effect to summon the Course from the Spell and Trap Zone, and Dragunity Course can treat itself as a level 4 or of course a level 2. So you can synchro summon into Dragunity Knight Rebar using any of the Bystial monsters, or using any of the level 8s. So that's why I played this over something like Phalanx, because even though Phalanx doesn't lock you out of, only summoning the Dragunity synchro monsters, Phalanx can only like do so much on its own, because even if I make a Savage, like if I open the Tracer and I search Phalanx, there would be no point in me going to Savage, because Tracer can do the same thing. So this way, Dragunity Course can, be used with any Bystial monsters or any of my level 8 dragons. So it's like more targets to synchro summon with, pretty much. And like, if I have full combo, it's usually Seal, Savage, and Dragunity and Rebar that I'm ending on, and like Bystial Monster 2, which is pretty good. And yeah, Dragunity and Rebar is like anti-tier. If you use him against any tier name, that card is banished from the graveyard or banished from the hand if they're using a Skirin, which is what I like to use this effect for. And like, they can't use that tier elements monster as a fusion material when they're using another tier name. So like, you're getting rid of that card completely. You're not getting it back unless they dump a crime. Dragunity and Rebar, he can banish a monster that he attacks over. So if they have like a Root Kalos or a Kaleido, you can banish that as well. It's like gone, out of the game, bro. It's not coming back, which is pretty neat. And like, his stats are just high enough where you can beat over the tier monsters. Or if they don't have the field spell, they can't beat over a Rebar because, you know, 33 attack, 32 defense, which is pretty high. And then he has one last effect. If he gets destroyed by an opponent's card, he can just nuke your opponent's back row, which is like the cherry on top. So that's why I have this engine. It plays around Kelbeck, gets you like an additional interruption, and like your end board plays around Super Poly. So you can either go into Seal Rebar or Seal Savage Rebar, which is like my best end board. Well, best, you know, generic end board without the extra stuff. And like, that's pretty good because there's no Super Poly targets, which is when I wanted to like play around the most because I just hate fusion deck. But yeah, that's pretty much the whole reason why I have this my engine. It's pretty good, and like the fact that I can use any Bystial monster plus course to make a Rebar, or any of my level 8s plus course to make a Rebar is like the best thing ever. And like, you can also use that as a extender. And so next up is the spells. Pretty self-explanatory. So I have the 3 quick launches, 3 chaos base, 1 ravine, 1 boot, and the 1 regain. So all the cards are pretty self-explanatory. Then of course you have the Divine Lance, which I already explained in depth. And then for the traps, 3 Imperm, 1 Beast. So I used Imperms instead of Veiler because Imperm plays around Called By, it plays around Talents, and like, it's useful as a 6 card. So I found that pretty neat. And then like, if my opponent goes into a kit Kalos and uses kit effect, I can just Imperm it, and like, they don't do nothing. So Imperm plus like a Bystial, it's like pretty good. You're like, I'm like stopping my opponent completely, and yeah, that's pretty much enough to stop any tier player. Just Imperm the kit and then Bystial their next name if they mill it. And yeah, that's it for the main deck. That is 45 cards. Next is my extra deck. So for Link 1s, have the Striker Dragon, of course, Pisty. I'm usually, if I see Boot in my hand, I go into Striker Dragon instead of Pisty, because there's no way for me to recycle Pisty if I don't go into Emperor, and like, I need Pisty on the follow-up, or like during my turn 0 if I feel like going into Barland or something like that and make some cheesy plays. So yeah, I'm usually using Striker Dragon first over Pisty. I feel like Pisty is gaining value. For Link 2, Romulus, Seal, Wallet Bro, Dillinger, and then Dark. Dark was going crazy this weekend. I was stealing a lot of people's monsters. Link 3s, Shuffleverse, and Unicorn. Pretty self-explanatory. Link 4s, Access Code Talker. I do not like going to access code against tier because when you pop anything, they start getting effects. So I want to use Brawl Sword, but you know, Brawl Sword requires a little more materials. So I just have the access code. And against, you know, decks that are not tiered, access code is pretty good. And for Link 5s, my favorite one, my only one, is Bystial Dragon. If I manage to summon him, I'm usually winning the game. Because our focus, if I'm going second, is to just make Bystial Dragon and attack over all of my opponent's monsters. Because Elements, they're not usually ending on a lot of follow-up. Like, if you can get past their Crime, their Sulic, they only have the Rukalos and like the Kaleido if they already used it. And Berlin can usually attack over all of that. And if they don't like already have a tier in hand to send off of Sulic, then you're already winning the game. So that's why I love this card a lot. I made him like a couple times this weekend. Very fun to use, very fun to summon, very fun to have. For Synchros, of course, the Borrowload Savage Dragon, self-explanatory. Garlight Red Dragon Archfiend. Unfortunately, I had to use him for time. Came up a lot. Came up like 2-3 times, I think. So yeah, it was pretty neat. It's good for time. It's good to blow up your opponent's board if you already went through your like Savage or something. And then for the last one, because I already showed you guys my Rebar, is the Wallow. I made him one time. It was, I kept him in because it was either that or Baron, but I wasn't summoning Baron when I was testing my deck. I figured that Wallet will come up more because usually I can just take my opponent's Bystial monsters, and at worst, if they don't have Magnamut, I would have to take their Jewel Swarm, and I can use my own Bystial monsters to make Wallow. And against tier, this card is very good. I just didn't get to summon it a lot. Okay, my phone just cut off on me, so it didn't record the part I was talking about, the Dragunity engine. It was talking about Wallow. So I think it ended on if my opponent mills a bunch of cards, then my monsters gain a bunch of attack, etc., etc. That's about it. And for my side deck, I wanted my side deck to be generic. So basically, if I was going up against a deck that was not tier, I wanted my side deck to be able to beat them. So like for Rogue and stuff. So the only anti-tier cards I had was the 2 Keldo and the 2 Medora. So I would usually side just going second or going first after like game 1, depending on the situation, because not only can they be used as discard fodder, but also wanted like additional interruption if my opponent mills my deck outside of my starting 5 cards if I'm going second. So usually it does come up if my opponent like mills my deck and I saw one of these, it's like additional interruption outside of my starting 5 cards. So if I had like my Bystial monsters and like the Shizu cards engraved, that's pretty good. And the cool part is I can just shuffle back Striker Dragon and Boot, which I did a couple of times, and that would make my Rocket Engine live again. So I can like any level 4 lower dragon monster can just make Striker Dragon again, search Boot again, all that good stuff, which I found pretty nice, pretty cool. And like it just gives you more follow up during the following turn. And then 3 Lightning Storms. So back to what I was saying. So 3 Lightning Storm. I was using it as Flu Hate, so I can hit either their back row or like their monsters, which is pretty good. Or like if I was going against back row decks by some small chance, I would at least have something. Dark Ruler No More, also Flu Hate, and also like Rogue Hate if I was going against any rogue decks. I need something to like break their boards. Dark Ruler No More was the card, and like it's pretty good going into Sprite matchups, Lightning Storm and Dark Ruler No More. If I saw 2 of them, that's pretty much a win right there. Because Sprites, I'm not really afraid of them. You know, dealing with Toad, dealing with Elf, pretty easy. But like the back row is spot removal, so the trap card can take my dragons, or the Sprite Smashers can banish my dragons, and like that's the worst thing that can happen because I can't link up no more. So yeah, these 2 cards were pretty good going into Rogue or Sprite matchup. Then Gamma, 1 Driver, of course. This was like in case I saw D-Shifter, which I didn't, surprisingly, or like into the Sprite matchup. Normal Summon, Nimble Beaver, Gamma that thing, got that out of here. Pretty much why I have this. Didn't came up a lot, but I had it just in case. And then my last card was the Grand Tusk Dragon. So I had 1 flex spot. I didn't know what to put, and I didn't want like a card that I can't search because I would have to hard draw it. And like I was like, maybe I should put in something that I can summon off of seals. That was like additional interruption, and Grand Tusk was like the first card that came to mind, because I can use the Amorphage monsters to lock my opponents out. But like the way my deck was built, I had enough interruptions for tier and like other matchups, and Grand Tusk was like the best card to put in my deck, because if my opponent like Forbidden Droplet or like Dark Rulered me, my Seal Summon would still be live, and then Grand Tusk can pop 2 cards. So this would be good against Flu, this would be good against Sprite, like any other rogue matchups. And then he also gains like 600 attack for each card pop, so it was pretty good. It didn't come up because, you know, I only went up against 1 Sprite player. And yeah, if you guys have any questions, like I said before, leave them down below. I'll see your comments. If you wanted to know anything, pretty sure I explained everything. But yeah, always willing to help, always willing to listen to the Dragon Link community. You know, I say it all the time, but like I'm always trying to make this deck the best that it can be in whatever format we are in. And yeah, YCS was very tiring. It was like 10 hours, bro. Like, god damn. GG out.